Praise now you, Adonai, King, our God, King of the universe, who gives us the Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to his people Israel and to all the peoples through his Son Yeshua, the Messiah, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Amen. What do you want?
No, go. Sure. All right. So let me backtrack. My brain's all over the place with these sessions. Okay. So we are busy discussing what?
Exodus.
Yeah. Which part?
Exodus.
Doing the Omer. The Omer. All right. And what did we see dealing with chapter 17? Remember where we were? What did we get in 17? And 17, we did 18. Okay, what's an Omer?
Measure.
Right, it's a measure, and where do we get that as a central theme in our in this portion that we're going through? Okay, we're studying a portion of when we look at the Omer, and the Omer in total is roughly from Exodus what?
13.
Right, all the way across to 19, right? And where is it do we see the word Omer pop up in our Bible? We're dealing with what?
Portion, manna.
Manna, right? You're dealing with the manna from heaven, right? And he says, basically, this is it. This is what it's about. Okay, you are looking at it, and in the midst of the story with the manna, there was another interesting word that popped up, that it says we're allowed to collect for 6 days, and on the 7th day, rest, okay? You don't go out and you gather. So the Omer immediately should link you to something called Shabbat. And Shabbat tells you what?
She does daily work.
Right, and where do we get that idea from? Because we haven't hit the mountain yet. Right, this Shabbat tells us about creation. Okay? And because we're celebrating this time of creation, we remember creation happened over how many days? Okay, technically 6, and then the 7th day he rested, but we're talking about a 7-day creation. What else about 7 days do we find in this idea that we're moving along? We left when? During Pesach. And the next feast? Unleavened bread. How many days is unleavened bread? 7 days. Okay? So again, we're coming back from 7 days of creation to unleavened bread, which happened because of Pesach, which is going to bring us to the Omer full, and further on lead us to a time when the true bread from heaven will fall. Shavuot. Okay? So in the midst of this, we see a framework. In the midst of this, we see preparation. Every chapter is an event of revelation to try and show you about God. You guys with me? Alright, we're back in the frame of mind. Alright, I want you to go to chapter 18. We had some issues about water, we weren't having a good time. There was water from the rock that came out. That rock is parallel with Messiah later in Corinthians. And the water's being sorted. So now we need to pay attention to what happened next. Now, Yitro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard about all that God had done. What is Jethro doing?
Giving a fast.
Alright, but first we have to take the obvious concession. We haven't heard about Moses and Zipporah for a pretty long time. Right? So there's a reunion, this reunification of family happens around this time. So first thing you need to check is in chapter 18, it's not just about Jethro, it's about family. And The last time we heard about Zipporah and the kids, there was an incident with the circumcision in Exodus 4. Okay, so we've had quite a long-ish stint. Miracles have happened, Egypt has been destroyed, we're out, we're cruising the wilderness, and now all of a sudden I get to see daddy-in-law, and with daddy-in-law comes family. Okay? He heard about all that God had done for Moshe and for Israel, his people. How Adonai had brought Israel out of Egypt. I just need to point something out. How many of you guys have noticed that Jethro's name has changed?
3 names, eh?
It's like 7. He was called? Huh? If you want to go there, let me write down. Let me write down the names here.
That's a lot of nicknames.
Yeah, tell me.
AKAs.
Yeah, alright? And remember, names mean stuff, so it's not just talking about his name, it's talking about his function. I'll leave that to you to break up. What I find interesting immediately is we are introduced to him as the priest of where? Midian, right? Now what would a priest of Midian have to do with this?
L.
El, right? Is El something that they would declare in Midian?
No.
No.
No, actually in scripture we say that's our translation for God. Okay? Now we know it is El, Elohim, El Elyon, God Most High, El Shaddai. We have a few different titles, okay, that he uses to break down. Okay? Now we also know through history and because of the Ugaritic text, how many of you guys know what I'm talking about? Good. Fantastic. One hand. Okay. There was a city called Ugar. And Ugar, in Ugar, when they excavated it, they found a whole bunch of texts, a whole bunch of tablets, a whole bunch of writings. Okay? And through it, it was predominantly a Canaanite city, so it was filled with Canaanite worship and ideas. And it's from those texts that we get a fuller understanding of what Canaanites thought of, what they called their deity, what practices they used. And in the midst of it, we see something, to give you an example. God talks about don't boil a kid in its mother's milk, right? It's in this whole breakup of random mitzvah, throwing it around, and then we look at it, and then Jews today we think it means don't mix meat and dairy, and someone did a little bit of a study and they said, you know what, when dairy and meat go together, it messes with your tummy, so it's not a good idea, you need to wait at least an hour before you do it. Right, logically, makes a lot of sense. Biblically, not so much. How do I know that?
That's not what he said.
Well, you don't know what he said. You're trying to
Including a
fathom
whole
it
list
out.
of don't do as the pagans did, sort of.
That we're going to get to. But we need to look at other biblical examples where we can stop and we can go, how do I know this is true from a biblical standpoint? If I get confused about something, surely I have to look at the entire framework to see if I have other examples of it to make sure it's true. Right? So if God is true, He's going to stay consistent throughout the entire story. If He said it in one place, surely He's going to expound on it somewhere else. Okay? Abraham has a meeting with God. And 2 other guys who could possibly be the Ruach HaKodesh and Yeshua. And he comes and he gives them food, right? Does anybody remember what he fed them?
Cheese.
He gave them lamb and he gave them cheese. Meat and dairy. And I'm asking the question going, but if Abraham knew God and he followed his mitzvot, because that's what Scripture says, how come he didn't know about it, and how come God didn't say, sorry, but you're not supposed to do that, separate them and stay consistent? He doesn't. Now, the rabbis have explained that away, saying it's obvious he ate the cheese first and he waited an hour.
And all that.
And I'm like, no, he sat there and he prepared it. It won't take 5 minutes to prepare the fattened calf. Think about it, guys. God is not negative. He doesn't contradict himself. So we have the cheese bread first, and then after the calf is ready, start a main meal. Come on, it's obvious. But that's not what Scripture says. It says they served it to him together. Everything was prepared and he gave it to him. Right? Logical explanation falls a little blank. Okay? What we do then is we start to look for other examples in different pagan nations to see what God prepared them for. And when we look at the texts we found in Ugar, it was a way to worship their god Baal. He was seen sitting over there with a goat in a bowl with milk in it. Now, if God is doing something, He's saying, don't act like that, or don't think you're going to worship me like that. Don't get confused. This isn't a different God with similar standards, or the same God with a different name. I am completely kadosh. I'm completely separate from everything you've ever seen and everything you've either identified. He's establishing his worship and he's establishing how things are going. Now, if you're a priest of Midian and you come in and you're starting to look at all of these testimonies that Jethro gets introduced as, there's an interesting thing when we first start to look at him is but in some cases he's now got the two closest names. We kind of have his Jethro and Jether. There's one letter that was added. Now when we look at that, can we think of another biblical example where a letter was added to someone's name to change it? Abraham. Sarah. Yehoshua. Okay? It was Hoshea, and then God added a Yud. This letter. And the smallest of his letters changes the entire function of Joshua. Hoshea saves. But it's not just Hoshea, it is now Yehoshua. This is the equivalent of a Yeh sound. Okay? And now it all of a sudden changes to Yah saves. Who's going to do the saving? Joshua, are you going to do it? No, you have to do it. That's right. I'm going to do it through you. Now, what's interesting about that is he takes the first letter of the Tetragrammaton. Yud, He, Vav, He. If we write that out phonetically, that's what it would look like. And he took this one for Joshua. Yes? Okay. Which letter does he take for Jethro? No. This letter doubles up in 3 different sounds. This is a Vav, and that Vav can make a U sound, an O sound, or a V sound. He takes this part, and what does that part mean for Jethro? What does Ve mean? And. It's a joining word. Number 1. Which is where we get the identity. The nail is attached to him. So he becomes attached to the house of Israel through a name change. And his name change comes in when we look at what? Listen to his declaration a little later. He tells him when he sees him, you won't believe what God has done. This is so amazing. And that for a priest of Midian should be controversial. Verse 2. After Moshe had sent away his wife Zipporah and her 2 sons, Jethro's mother's father-in-law had taken them back. The name of the son was Gershom, a foreigner there. For Moshe had said, I have been a foreigner in a foreign land. Don't you find that funny? Gershom, Goshen. You were completely ostracized. You were completely separate from everything you knew. Where are they now? As Israel, they're completely separated from Egypt. They're completely separated from everything they understood. I have been a foreigner in a foreign land. They were foreigners in Egypt. The name of the other was Eliezer, my God helps. Because the God of my father helped me by rescuing me from Pharaoh's sword. Where does Eliezer first pop up? The helper of Abraham. Okay, also Aaron's son. Okay? It was Nadab, Abihu, and then Eliezer and Ithamar. But first we have to go back to Abraham. So what was it about Eliezer that's in connection with God's people?
He was sent out.
Eliezer went to go fetch who or what?
Rebecca, for Jacob. Oh, for Isaac, sorry.
He went to go fetch Isaac a bride. For what purpose? Right?
Because his mom died.
His mom died and he was in distress. And after he got married, and thus he was comforted. You starting to see pictures? The bride is a way to comfort. The Ruach HaKodesh is the one who chooses the bride. Okay? It anoints her. It covers her. It is the veil. We're preparing for Mount Sinai. The Ruach HaKodesh is going to write the words of God on a tablet. Thus preparing a people and bringing them comfort that they're no longer aliens, they're no longer foreigners, but they're going to go back home and they're going to go walk like Abraham walked. The promises are going to be established. Are you with me? All right, click, click. Yitros, Moshe's father-in-law, brought his sons and his wife to him in the desert where he encamped at the mountain of God. He sent word to Moshe, I, your father-in-law Yitro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons. Moshe went out to meet his father-in-law, prostrated himself and kissed him. He bowed down before him. Right? Then after inquiring of each other's welfare, they entered the tent. Moshe told his father-in-law all that Adonai had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardships they had suffered while traveling, and how Adonai had rescued him. What do we know about Jethro? Does he like injustice? How did Moses get included in the family? What act did he do?
He married Zipporah.
No. How did he get introduced to Zipporah? The watering hole, right? They wanted to chase him away and he goes, no, watch. Moses also doesn't like injustice. How do I know that? He saw someone beating a fellow Israelite and he said, is it? No one else is watching. We're going to sort this out quickly. Okay? But Moses didn't realize to save a nation is not just about saving one person. God had to do something so much bigger than Moses ever anticipated. Okay? Look at his response. Jethro rejoiced over all the good that Adonai had done for Israel by rescuing them from the Egyptians. Jethro said, Blessed be Adonai, who has rescued you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh, who has rescued you from the people, from the harsh hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Adonai, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, what we understand to be Yehovah, is greater than all other gods because he rescued those who were treated so arrogantly. Yitro, Moshe's father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the leaders of Israel to share with the meal before God with Moshe's father-in-law. You're a priest of Midian, and he hears about this testimony, and he goes, Baruch atah Adonai. Blessed is he. Sorry, you were the great priest of who? That's definitely not a statement you should be making. from a normal hold on to my prime position statement. But the funny thing is the formula actually precedes him. Go quickly to, it was Genesis, no, Genesis 24. There's a linking here with the names. Go to Genesis 24, verse 26 to 27. Tell me what you see there. Genesis 24. What was happening there? What's the context of that story? Genesis 24, verse 26 and 27. Something is happening there. Tell me a story. Who is the guy who says the blessing? Who is the one who echoes the words, blessed is God? Eliezer. The same guy we just spoke about. And Eliezer is on the mission to do? To go and find the bride. And if God goes before me, I will know that He's going to choose the right person for my servant, for my master and his son. This is going to be awesome because God's going to do the choosing and I'm just going to witness this. And how do I know that it's done? And he sets a fleece out. He tests God. He says, if she does this, then I'll know. Then I'll know for sure. And then, please, if she does this, I know she's part of my father's family. Then I know I've been successful. She doesn't even know she's already engaged. I'm just going to pour some water out. You're the wife. What? This is water, dude. That's where it stops. He said, no, I got this. You've got to meet this guy. Don't worry, we're distant relatives. Everything's going to be okay. Huh? And she all of a sudden gets blown away by what's happening. And the first thing he does is when she does this and he finds out it's part of Laban and he goes, it's definitely God has chosen this one. What does he do? He praises God, but he says, same formula, blessed is he. And then he takes gold and he gives her jewelry. And he covers her, adorns her with gifts from the groom. The gift of the Spirit. And she gets prepared. Negotiation takes place and she gets sent. You know, this is the first time we see Laban getting a real taste of the wealth that's coming from the other side of the family. I find it very interesting that in that story it's not the father who comes out and does the negotiations. Laban's the one there sorting out negotiations. The same Laban who does negotiations for another bride or two. Right. He's always in there. He said, last time you asked visit, you came here with gold. But where are you now? And what do we find? Jacob's like, can I work it off? It's like, what happened to the girl? Where's Eliezer? Now, him and I, we can understand. You bring the gold, you take the girl, it's all good. You on the other end, we've got to talk. But there's lessons to be learned. He makes the same blessing as Eliezer, a priest of Midian. Attaches himself. But when he comes across, remember, he's restoring the bride to the prophet. He's restoring a family. Eliezer brought the bride to the groom and started to prepare it as it has gone out already before you. Such will be the case. He stands up and he makes this massive blessing and he joins himself in an offering to God. And all the leaders come out and witness it. Now what's the point of the plagues of Egypt? Was it just to save Israel?
International statement. Breaking news.
When he didn't have to go to Egypt to see how many pieces were left. Moses, what did he do? He took him at his word and the nation was standing behind him and he goes, how can I deny that this God is God? If you could take on the Egyptians and the Egyptians' gods and flatten them and you're sitting here, whatever he put his trust in has just died along with the Egyptians. One testimony. The proof is in the pudding. Does He answer your prayer, yes or no? How can you deny it? And you're sitting over there, and this guy is literally enjoining a household, himself to a household, himself to a people. Just like the mixed multitude that were there as well, joining themselves with the same thing. How can we deny that God took on the gods of Egypt and He's the only one left standing? Nothing we've ever seen or heard of has happened like this. And to this day we have a nation with a testimony about what happens at Shavuot. We heard God's voice. He gave us these instructions, and this is our land. Nothing's changed. Even when they lost the land, even when they never lost their identity. Many of them did, most of them didn't. This is our land. We were always meant to come home. We were always meant to be established here. This was a promise made to Abraham. And we're going to establish this in this time. So God establishes Himself. It's a call for people to stand up and take notice. So when God answers your prayers, what is it going out like? What are other people seeing? Parents, when you pray and God answers your prayers, do you keep quiet? Or do you share it with the generation who's watching you? Do they see you pray? Do they hear you pray? We're very quick to do this closet thing, and I get it. Some of us, we say, you sure said, pray in the closet. But for a Jew, that means close your talit. And you're standing over there and you're praying, but they don't pray quietly. I was sitting there at the wall at the last trip, and I was just sitting there, and I'm just thanking Abba, and I hear this guy next to me. I don't even think he was Jewish, but he understood it, because they're all going off and they're all singing. So you've got to literally ask God to shut your ears and listen in, really just listen in, and try to pick up His voice in the midst of all these voices that are singing and chanting psalms and praying to God. And then I hear this oak probably maybe about 3 meters away from me, and he goes, God, I'm really here for you. I do all of this for you. I'm just standing here and I'm just asking that you just walk with me, and I'm just here. And I just want to tell you I love you. And, there's no point to my life if you're not in it. And this oak's just pouring out his heart. He doesn't care who's listening to what he's saying. He's just like, I'm here. He says, I bring these people, I do this, I teach them, but it means nothing if you're not with me. And he didn't care whether he was confessing his darkest secrets or just having a simple, plain conversation with his Creator. It's like, this is not between you and me, brother. This is between me and Him. If you want to listen in, if you've got something, if you've got a word for me, cool. But otherwise, he just poured out his heart, and it was all audible, and everybody understood exactly where he was with his Creator. And he sat there probably for about 10 minutes, just having this fat conversation. That's partly there's a lovely way that the Siddur, in one of the prayer books, they get different publications, but one of them really just talks about, says, prayer is like a gift. It's not so much that you tell God what you need. He already knows what you need. He knows before you even ask of it. Pray so that you realize you know what you need. How many of you have sat down and you've got 50 million things running through your minds, and then you sit down and you actually make a list, and then you realize those are the points that you need to hit? You then start to understand, and then you can go to your Creator and you can say, listen, okay, I figured it out. You're my source. It's all about you. And if I belong to you and you say you love me, I'm going to trust in the fact that you are going to take care of everything I need. If we are the bride of Christ, then Torah clearly dictates that He needs to take care of your shelter, He needs to take care of your food, and He needs to take care of your intimacy. If He doesn't do any one of those three, you're allowed to leave. You have grounds for divorce according to what Torah states. And if He is the Word, He doesn't contradict Himself. But what does He seek higher than everything? It says, seek the kingdom first and its righteousness, and the rest will be given to you. You see, marriage is not defined by where you have it. It's not about the house you're staying in, it's the home you're building in. It's not about the meals you eat together. It's the intimacy and sharing between the two of you of what you cultivate that's what's going to define your marriage. Everything revolves around seeking the intimacy first. That closeness with Him. That understanding. That just being in His presence and everything is okay. Where you've been all day. I've missed you. Have you had a good day? Looking at someone in the eyes and just really asking the question, not the how you, oh, okay. Genuinely taking the concern and looking at the person you said you would love forever and saying, hi, I'm here. Speak to me. Tell me how many cups of coffee you had. Tell me what happened. Tell me if something not so nice happened. Tell me if something fantastic happened. I want to hear it all. Not because I'm really interested in all that stuff, it's because I'm interested in you. And He's that close, and He wants that sort of relationship. And I find it absolutely amazing that this guy comes up and the first thing he does is he says, this is God. All right, I'm all in, but by the way, you know that big thing you've been missing for a while and you didn't know if you would ever see your children again because you were going to go face Pharaoh and all this other stuff that you were now freaking out about. Well, here they are. Complete restoration of family. What that must have meant to Moses. Verse 13, the following day Moshe sat to settle disputes for the people, and while the people stood around Moshe from morning till evening, when Moshe's father-in-law saw all that he was doing to the people, he said, what is this, what you're doing with these people? Why do you sit there alone? With all the people standing around for you from morning until evening. Moshe answered his father-in-law, it's because the people come to me seeking God's guidance. Whenever they have a dispute, it comes to me. I judge between one person and the other, and I explain to them God's laws and teachings. Moses' father-in-law said to him, what you're doing isn't good. Now, normal response, you just figured out God is real. I've been walking with Him for a month. Who's more qualified? Now, if we let self get in the way, Moses would have said, listen, but I've been walking with this God, I've been talking with this God, I think I know what He likes and what He doesn't like. Let me tell you something. No matter how much you've studied and no matter how elevated you are, you can still learn from someone.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the basic things that you've forgotten. He's not looking at it from a judging perspective and who's the most qualified to judge and who hears the voice of God more clearly or who and how he's supposed to do things. He's not looking at it from that perspective. He says, what you're doing isn't good. You will certainly wear yourself out. But this isn't good for you. I'm worried about you. And not only yourself, but the people here with you as well. It's too much for you. You can't do it alone by yourself. So listen now to what I have to say. I will give you some advice and God will be with you. He says, look, don't just listen to me. This is not I'm going to give you what I think. I want you to go take this to God and ask Him if it's a good idea. Go pray about this. Right? And he says, you should represent the people before God and you should bring their cases to God. You should also teach them the laws and the teachings and show them how to live their lives and what work they should do. But you should choose from among all the people competent men who are God-fearing, honest and incorruptible. So what three statutes do we have for something that He's going to establish here?
God-fearing.
God-fearing.
Honest and incorruptible.
Sorry, God-fearing. What's the next one?
Honest.
Honest.
And incorruptible.
Okay, what does incorruptible have to do? Any other translation for incorruptible?
Selfless, I suppose.
Trustworthy in some translations?
Said hating dishonest profit.
Right, hating dishonest gain. So people that are not swayed by money. Okay? It's funny you kind of see this if you start to do a study on leadership. Deacons, leaders, they kind of fall into the same thing. Okay? So, no dishonest gain. Okay? So you're not going to sway left or right because you're going to be a judge. And if you need to be a judge, if some guy comes up to you and he goes, listen, bud, let's go modern day, for example. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but two people in your congregation are having a Fariba bubbles, and they're making babagalans. Lots of brokenness, lots of issues. And they come up to you whether you're sitting in a shul or whether you're sitting in a church congregation. One of them contributes 100,000 a month, another one gives you 10 grand a month.
Same.
Now listen. If you say no to the one who gives you lots of money, you might not be able to carry on doing the work that you're doing. So I need to pay extra careful attention to what's going on here. The synagogue might close. The church might not keep its doors open if this person decides to leave.
Trust is in the wrong place.
Absolutely. You're not looking up, you're looking at your bank balance. And when you're looking at your bank balance, you make a decision based on what is going to favor you in the now. But really, I'm doing this for the people, because if the church closes, how am I going to reach other people? Oh man, and then we start chasing our hamsters around all over the place because God is no longer our source. This person is my source. And I start looking to the person to make sure the bills are paid instead of looking to God to make sure the bills are paid. And I judge in accordance to what I want, not what is God's truth.
So I would say that's the same kind of fear that's shown, or that led sort of to Moshe's demise later on. Because the fear of his action being what led to the people getting water, versus God's miracle of giving them water through Moshe.
In a way, they looked to Moses and he said, shall we do it? Yes. You start to steal away from things like that. Okay? So he gives them this foundation and he says, okay guys, we're going to establish judges here. And if we jump down, he says, Moses paid his attention to his father-in-law's counsel and did everything he said. Moses chose competent men from all Israel and made them heads over people in charge of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. As a general rule, they settled the people's disputes. The difficult cases they were brought to Moshe, but every simple matter they decided themselves. Now, modern day example. Why is it a good idea not to trust in one sole person? Right, it can become. Okay, so let's use me an example. We come over here. Well, this is, okay, bad example. This is not me being me. Okay, this is me being the bad guy. This is my fellowship. This is my house. And if you don't like it, latte bye. And in the same way as if I said, maybe I do everything right. Maybe. And I get to the place. I've made plenty of mistakes already, so don't stress. I get to this place and I look at it and you guys look to me. And what happens if God says, Vince, raise up someone else, I need you to go somewhere else? What happens to the fellowship here? Vince leaves, there's no community. Is that true? Hope not.
Not to be.
The problem is that everybody here needs to look to the next leader and realize it's about you. It's not about the person just standing here. So we get told, number one, nice smack on my nose. I've had this twice already. It's been fantastic. You're doing a really bad job because you're trying to do 3 people's jobs at the same time. Vince, who's running the fellowship? Me. Okay, who's helping the people? Me. Who's teaching and guiding and doing all, I'm doing all of that. So aren't the people tired of waiting for you? Maybe, but I get there when I get there. Don't they get frustrated? I don't know really. Why don't you start to look to other people to help you out? God told me quite clearly, you can't do this by yourself. You need people, and people that are shown and proven to be God-fearing, honest, and you can't buy them. So if you come seeking counsel, they're more worried about, listen, if I get this wrong, God's going to come knock on my door and say, what, did you give them Torah or did you give them you? I thought this was a really good idea. Did you ask me if you didn't know? And if it's not clear cut, why don't you go talk to the guy at the top and then let him come and sit by my feet and say, I don't really understand. Or maybe he's dealt with it once already and I've already given him a ruling, but we've never spoken about it because it's never come up. Literally, the dangers we have today is if ministries are built on single people. And when that person leaves, the ministry falls apart and the community's only common thing was the guy who stood in front. And that's a dangerous game. Because you more worry about Moses, and when Moses is dead, the dream dies. No, God's the one who's telling Moses what to do. And in Joshua, he goes, as much, he says, as I was with Moses, I will be with you as well. And Joshua had to learn to rely on other people as well. This was a message for Joshua. And he said, Joshua, but you can't do this. I'm going to need your sole focus. The disciples understood this. When the disciples were sitting over there in Acts, said there were some widows that were being overlooked in the offerings, and they said, look, we're going to pray for some people and we're going to ask God to show us which ones are going to do this job, and they're going to be anointed for that work, but we are going to be focused on seeking God's face day after day, so that when we give direction, everybody else will know. But while you're waiting for us, you're still being taken care of. You can't do it all. There are a couple of dangers that God saves us from in this portion. He's God, you're not. You can't do everything. It's a good lesson to learn. Number two, it's not about you, it's about everybody. It's about building up the community, so let's build it up together. If no one is standing in front of this pulpit, church doesn't stop, you are church. Do me a favor, just stop and look around. Yeah, that's an active thing. Actually, look around. This is community. If Vince is not here, community still exists. If Vince is not here, other people have your back. If Vince is not here, other leaders have stepped up to take position in place. If Vince needs to go to Israel, you still carry on. Because this isn't about Vince, this is about God, and God has called you. This is about how we build each other up as a family. Moses lost sight of it. You're not an island. This isn't a thing when we come here. South Africans are fantastic at this. We love our neighbors as much as the 6-foot wall will allow us. And if their alarm goes off, don't stress about it. It's someone else's alarm. But let's think for a second that if we built up a community, we go by one massive piece of land and we decide everybody's going to put their houses on and we're going to build a neighborhood. We're not going to become Amish, we're going to build a neighborhood. Everybody else is going to go do their work, other people are going to go because, heck, maybe one day we do this. But I know at house number 4, if that alarm goes off, what's going on? Why? Because I know the person in it. And I know the situation. And I know it might be Ivan away in Chile again and Renee's alarm's gone off. What do I do?
Going to deal with it.
Yeah. How do I make sure that Tyler and Keegan and everybody else is okay? How do I make sure Renee's okay? You get up and you act like a neighbor. You get up and you act like family. You see, we come to fellowship, we come to church, we go to shul, and we've built this separateness about ourselves. And the first thing that the enemy wants us to do is believe it. It's okay to be an island. It's okay to be alone. It's okay to isolate yourself. And that's not community. That's not what's establishing here. So that other people may get to know you. If there's 10 of you and there's someone in charge, I need to be able, if Vince is busy, I need to go to someone else. I need to know what God is helping me deal with. And as that person in charge of the 10 gets to be built up and knows that he's got a little flock to take care of, God's going to hold him accountable. They're training him up. Because you might be training 10 now and he might say, you're doing such a good job. He has 20.
100.
And then 100. And then maybe 1,000. And now instead of training up people, you're training up the leaders who are training the people. I've said it before, guys. None of you strike me as these little quiet sheep. They just go, bah, and then they're going to be off chasing the shepherd. What I see are people that have been pulled, that are strong, that need to be trained up so they can go and train others. You're not here to be a player. You have to be prepared so you can teach. You might not do it the same way as me. You might have less people than me. You might have more than me. It doesn't matter. What matters is you answer your call in your life so that you can go and be this leader for God. And sometimes it's just as simple as, you're the dad, run your house. And if we don't have that, there's someone else that you can look up to and say, okay, I need help. What does God expect of me? What does God want me to do here? Guys, we have a need in this little community. How are we as a community going to address that need? You see, part of this process of counting of the Omer is we need to stop thinking like slaves and think about what happens in slave mentality. If I get free, it's cool. If I get promoted, it's fine. In God's economy,
Black tax.
family, we're not just going to pull one of you out. We're not just going to say one. We're going to pull everyone out. And you will operate, and you will understand, and you will move together with one mind, with one heart. And when one of us stumble, we all stumble. When one of us are struggling, we all pick it up. You see, in a normal group, individualism is easy. And it's nice because if I sin, it doesn't affect everybody else. And that's the justification. As family, if one child loses their nut, it affects the entire family. God has not brought you here so that we can carry on playing church. And I say that with love and respect. Church has been a fantastic stepping stone to get people to know Christ. The problem is they do nothing with Him once they get there. There's no discipleship. There's no training. And if it is, it's training doctrine. It's not training Torah. It's not training God's Word so that they can go out and share God, not doctrine. My heart is that you would learn enough to be able to look at the text, and even though you haven't studied everything, I mean, God has pushed me in ways that I don't understand, and He's like, oh God, please teach me Daniel. I'm like, that's nice, I'm going to go study Daniel quickly. And I have to sit, and I have to study, and I have to ask Abba, and I would like look at this backwards, upside down, left and right, and as I'm teaching it, He's still teaching me. It's not about that Vince went to some sort of seminary and studied all the books of the Bible and did it so that we knew everything about anything. If you're going to seminary, you only study 11 books of the Bible. 11 out of 60. 66 books, and you just leave them there. This is about you relying on God so that He can use you to fulfill His calling in your life. Whether you're a worship leader, whether you're a family leader, or whether you're just part of community, you're still stepping up and you're still here to be trained. Don't think that He's forgotten about you. He's training you. Don't think about that He's forgotten about purpose. I know we all get distracted in our jobs and all the rest of it that are going on, and we think this is it. It's not it. This is about preparation for big things to come. We need to prepare the way for the King. We need to understand that His kingdom will come, and we need to get as many people in as possible. And I'm not just talking about evangelizing, I'm talking about training, I'm talking about teaching, I'm talking about loving them. Yeshua went into communities, he went into synagogues, he went into homes. He never hid in his house and said, okay, if you come, fine. We need to be able to get to the place where we can know the people and their issues enough, and this is part of this framework. Guys, there's enough of us here to know when one of us is struggling. It is then your responsibility to bring it towards someone whom you know is God-fearing, who's honest, who's focusing on God and saying, okay, right, I have an issue. Help a brother out. Help me understand so that maybe I can take this word to them. This is not just about here, not about me, not about Moses, not about Joshua. It is about Israel. And God chose certain people to do certain jobs at the time. You have your jobs. Act accordingly. Are you with me?
Yes.
Alright. I don't know who needed that, but that was a biggie. Chapter 19. What do you see in chapter 19? What's the first verse?
Third month.
Alright. After the people had left Israel. So, you didn't know about him. He came and shook heaven and earth, did some crazy miracles. You've been set free. You've seen water come from rock, quail fall from the sky, manna come up every morning. You've been in a battle with the Amalekites. You've realized Moses had a family. How crazy is that? He's human. And then we've got all this going on there, and then in the third month after the people of Israel have left, would you consider that a bit of a roller coaster? How many of you have been through a moment where God has picked you up, dusted you off, and He's gone bang, 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 and He's taken you through this process? For me, it was like when I got saved. It was just like realization upon realization upon realization that He was real and He existed, and everything that I went through was just to show me again that He was there and He's here, and that's what's going on, and I'm just still trying to play catch up. He doesn't stop the roller coaster here. He says, all right, 3. What does the number 3 normally represent? Try you. Okay, Father, Son, and Ruach. Okay, the third month after the people of Israel left the land of Egypt, the same day they came to the Sinai desert after setting out from Rephidim and arriving at the Sinai. What happened at Rephidim? No. Rephidim was a place of arguing. Okay, they came and attacked the back of the camp when they were at Rephidim with the Amalekites. But at the same place that he mentions, he doesn't say, remember that time that when we walked from that place to that place? I love God through His stages. He'll remind you about where He pulled you out of. How many of you have had that reminder? Remember that time you said that thing? Remember that time? Okay, now I need you to look forward from that moment on. Now you've got 1 or 2 ways to look at this. Either He's belittling you and He's telling you how useless you are that He found you. Does that sound like God's character?
No.
No, absolutely not. He's there to build you up. So He's going, remember what I showed you here. Now from this moment, I need you to look forward. What did I do here? When we understand Rephidim, where did they get the water? From the mountain. Sinai, Horeb. And He's now leading, following the water source, and they're coming closer and closer to the source of life. You see the picture? They camped in the desert. There in front of the mountain, Israel set up camp. All of these lessons, all of this moment, now you are going to come face to face with a God who saved you. Anybody nervous yet? You mean we're going to meet Him? Moses? Remember I told you about the burning bush? I met him here. Time for you to have a meeting too. From the fire of a burning bush to the fire of a mountaintop. Are you ready? Moses went up to God, and Adonai called to him from the mountain, "Here is what you are to say to the household of Yaakov and tell the people of Israel." Jacob, physical seed. Israel, spiritual seed. Remember, there was a mixed multitude that went with. He doesn't say tell Jacob and Israel and those other guys who followed you around for a while. You guys know what I'm talking about when I say Jacob and Israel? How do you know that's true? Yeah, you see. Who's the guy Jacob?
Son of Isaac.
Right, son of Yitzhak, Jacob and Esau, right? He's a man. And Jacob had a wrestling match
With God.
with God. And he changed his name to?
Israel. He wrestled with God.
Right, and Jacob stays true to his name. When him and Esau were wrestling inside of Mommy's tomb, and Esau was about to bust out, he's like, and God was going to jump out, he's like, hold on to that tent until God says, look, I'm going to put your hip out of your socket if you don't let go. Like, you're not going anywhere until you bless me. You're not going anywhere. This brother had a lot of tenacity, and he held on, and his name got changed. And he wrestled. He wrestled within himself. He wrestled with all his faults. He wrestled with God who was right, and he realized how he had gone wrong. You've got the firstborn blessing book, but you stole it. Don't play games here. You might have had every right to it, but if you let me establish it, you wouldn't have to wrestle with me. It would have been a gift. And now you're sitting over there, you're standing before him, and he goes through these moments, and we know he's up and down, he's all over the place, and he finds out he loses his favorite son. And he shuts off everything about God. You took my favorite wife, you've taken my favorite boy, what more do you want from me? You told me you would be with me, I'm sorry. This is not what I signed up for. How many of you have done that? No.
Job +1.
Yeah. We stop and we blame God because our situation is not the way we wanted it to be. And he said, I took your son because you were going to make him the head of your house. But what you don't understand is I'm going to make him the head of the house. You thought too small. And he says, I'm going to take you and I'm going to lift you up. But before you get there, man, there's going to be some humbling. And Joseph had to go through this whole process because Daddy wasn't going to tell him he was a little bit arrogant. So God had to. And he had to peg him down 3 steps just so that he could lift him up. Sometimes our processes force us to be humble because we know everything. And then you realize God's sitting there smiling and he's going, bro, I'm doing this for you because if you carry on thinking this way, you're going to pull a whole bunch of people down broken with you. I need to save people through you, not break them down. And he thought he lost his son, he lost his precious Joseph, until one day he finds out he's alive, and the first thing that happens out, scripture, in between that whole thing, it's Jacob, Israel, and it's interchangeable, and we're like, what's going on? No one tells us his name was interchangeable, and then we see it. And Israel went and offered up a sacrifice. When Jacob was acting by himself and he was holding a grudge, his relationship with God struggled. He was thinking in the flesh. But when he realized God has restored and loved him this entire time, he's been angry at him for nothing. Joseph has just saved them by God's grace, and he's doing fine, much better than a little inheritance. He's in charge of Egypt. And he's not only going to feed you, but he's going to feed the world as well. You see, the disciples thought their hope was gone. The heir to the throne was destroyed, and they also thought of a physical kingdom. And he says, no, this food This one who's going to conquer bondage, the one who's going to be lifted up to the right hand of the power, the one who's going to be food for everyone. That's the Messiah you're going to see. Rejoice because that time is coming. He makes the distinction. He says, the physical seed, I have a covenant. I'm going to establish this covenant as with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. But the spiritual house of Israel is anyone who joins the house of Israel. Anyone who decides, like Jethro, he is God. You belong to him. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. There was judgment and there was love. In our case, hopefully you see the love in the judgment. Now if you will pay careful attention to what I say and keep my covenant, then you will be my own treasure from among the peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you will be a kingdom of Kohanim for me, a nation set apart. These are the words you are to speak to the people of Israel. Imagine you're Moses. What type of priesthood are you going to be? Something so set apart, you're not going to recognize it. They only understand Egyptian priests. If I just use that logic, we are going to reflect you in everything we do. So when you're angry at something, we're angry at something. If you're full of mercy and compassionate, that's what we're going to do. How many times when we deal with people do we have that in the back of our mind? God loves you, so do I. Don't be silly, Vince. I don't even know the person. God gets frustrated at what's going on in their life. Do I get frustrated? Does it come from the right place? Be careful, leadership, when you get to the point when you sit down, and I'm sure some of you have had this at times, when you become annoyed at your family because they don't get it. Did you? So God switches on your light and now you're allowed to be angry at them because they don't understand it? I didn't think He was real until I was 25 years old. And only then did God intervene and say, hi. Who said that? So, I turned on your lights. What are you doing for them? When they come into your home, are you going to make them feel as welcome as what I do for you? Are you going to be willing to listen to them hurt? Are you going to cry with them? You start to see how your walls have to disappear and it's more about the person than the building. It's about you. It's about God. It's about relationship. These are the words you have to speak to Moses. I'm sure Moses was probably like, sounds completely surreal. Moshe came, he summoned the leaders of the people and presented them with these words which Adonai had ordered them to say. All the people answered as one. Everything Adonai has said, we will do. We have heard, we will obey, we are here. I do. Marriage contract. Do you? Absolutely. Give me that ring. I'll put it on that finger. I am completely bugging right now. It's like the best Jewish thing I've ever done in my life. And the excitement fades. Welcome to marriage. It gets better. Moshe reported the words of the people to Adonai. Adonai said to Moshe, see, I'm coming to you in a thick cloud so that the people will be able to hear when I speak with you, and you also to trust in you forever. Moshe had told Adonai what the people had said. So Adonai said to Moshe, go to the people today and tomorrow, separate them for me by having them wash their clothing. Let me backtrack one section. Why would God want people to trust in Moses forever?
So the lessons that you write down will not be regarded as nothing, because you write all these books down.
So that we can believe what was here because of the testimony of someone having an actual relationship talking to God. Was it just Moses? No, an entire nation heard the very voice of God. Fast forward, New Testament. Was it just Yeshua? No, he appeared to his disciples. People were transformed in a blink of an eye. 3,000 people were saved at Shavuot. They all saw it. So is he just a man? No. You too will bear witness of what you understand and who you know. Is he still hanging on a tree or sitting decayed in a cave we haven't found? No. Because how then would he answer my prayers? Surely some of us would have figured that out already. But how many of you have prayed something so specific and so quietly, you've never told anyone, and then all of a sudden things start falling into place and you are just blown away that God actually heard you? Keep your hands up. There's some people that need to see this. It's possible. He hears, he acts, he loves, he's there. And if he's dead, he can't do those things. So therefore he is alive. Go to the people today and tomorrow, separate them for having them wash their clothing. Yeah, that's a good one. God's making sure you smell nice before you see him. Why would I want to wash my clothes?
Good exercise.
Right, you say exercise. Yeah, in the desert, let's talk about water usage. You are
nasty and
where are you getting the water to wash your clothes?
From Abba,
From the water coming from the mountain.
cleanliness,
It's a mikvah.
cleanliness.
I'm worried about coming into the king's presence. How many of you would wear 3-day-old stinky clothes and you're going to go visit the Queen of England?
Donald Trump.
You're going to come in there and they say, listen guys, this is a formal affair. If you get invited out and you get an invitation that says black tie, and the chairman of your company, maybe you're working for one of those big billion-dollar places, Bill Gates is going to meet you, and you really respect this man because he's taught you a lot in business, don't wash for 3 days and then go there and see what he says. We employed this. Is this Microsoft? You step up into a place and out of respect, firstly. Secondly, you're coming in prepared to see the king. How long do I have to wait? 3 days. Yeshua's time of preparation. Are you being prepared? Adonai will come down on Mount Sinai before the eyes of the people. You are to set limits for the people all around and say, be careful not to go up onto the mountain or even touch its base. Whoever touches the mountain will surely be put to death. No hand is to touch him, for he must be stoned or shot by arrows. I find that very strange. Who's got arrows? No, not actually. I'm talking about in the mountain. No, we'll stay away from here. If you touch the mountain, I'll put it down. Right? It says, neither animal nor human will be allowed to live. When the shofar sounds, they may go up to the mountain. There is a time when you need to be separate from God. What did he say when he first appeared? Yeshua, don't touch me, because I have not yet ascended. Interesting.
But the arrows is also a warning to stand back.
You have to. It's not. You don't. It's not going to be a.
It's kind of like don't mix the profane with the holy.
Absolutely. You do not yet understand what is clean and unclean. I'm still teaching you this stuff. This mountain is completely set apart and he's going to visit. This is a real deal. Respect God's sanctity. Us in our broken state cannot fully understand that yet. But through the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, things start to change. Okay? It is completely, Moses went down. Now if we're using St. Catherine's just as a guide, St. Catherine's Monastery in Sinai, Okay, it's a lovely little stroll. I've not done it yet, but they say it's about 1,000 steps. And each step is about the distance from the floor to the first level of a chair. So when they drop you off at 3 in the morning, hopefully you get up before sunrise.
Don't they have
No.
elevators?
No cable car, you want to go see, you're more than welcome. So you go, and you climb, and you get up, and the sun comes up, and then you go, where's the bus? Walk all the way back down.
Ah,
Where's the dummy?
sorry?
Yeah, you have to walk back down from St. Catherine's down to the bus, and then go.
Hamlet, bueno.
Yeah, make Gamna look like a little day walk. We're talking about a 2-hour hike. Now, Moses, you've come up all the way now, go and tell the people. And Moses went down to the people and separated the people for God, and they washed their clothing. And he said to the people, prepare for the 3rd day, don't approach any woman. Now that's just weird. Why am I not allowed to touch a woman? What is he talking about? All right, no sexual relations for 3 days. You're on lockdown. Why?
To be focused on him.
It's about focus, maybe.
Because of the practices that they were used to from...
Right, if things get a little bit confusing, we've got to look at the people that they're protecting. We have a problem. Roman, Greek, Canaanite, all confused. What you did on their altar was not kosher. Relationship between a husband and wife has become perverted, and then it's about the priest and the priestess, and it's about anybody and everything and everyone else, and it doesn't matter because you don't even know if that child is yours, so child sacrifice becomes easier. And something that was supposed to be Adam and Eve is now become common, and it is an act of worship. He's preparing them, don't get confused. You will not worship me in that way. We see it come back later. Pinchas gets a covenant of peace because they forgot that. Listen, it's not that, and we have some theology out there that it says when a husband and wife make love, the Holy Spirit leaves the room. It's not the case. This is about an intimacy that God has allowed in its place. A husband and a wife get the benefit. It's an act of intimacy. It's about oneness. You don't get to make it common. Unfortunately today, what do?
No boundaries.
It's common. It's okay to do whatever you want with whoever you want, and if it doesn't work out, just move on. It's fine. Live together for a couple of years, do whatever you want, and then if it doesn't work out, it's okay. You just don't realize how many times you're breaking yourself and the other person at the same time. So when you get to the place, God willing, you get to the place where you decide to get married. Your first intimate experience will be your framework for whatever you judge from that time on. But if your first intimate experience is with your spouse, it'll be what you build on from that time on. Don't get confused. This stuff can break you. The world will tell you it's okay. It's not. He says, you will not worship me that way. On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder, lightning, thick cloud on the mountain, then a shofar blast that sounded so loudly that all the people in the camp trembled. Moshe brought the people out of the camp to meet God. They stood there at the base of Mount Sinai was enveloped in smoke because Adonai descended onto it in fire. Its smoke went up like the smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain shook violently. As the sound of the shofar grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him with a voice. You heard the very voice of God. Adonai came down onto Mount Sinai on top of the mountain, and Adonai called Moshe to the top of the mountain, and Moshe went up. Adonai said to Moshe, go down and warn the people not to force their way through to Adonai to see him. if they do, many of them will perish. So Moses gets up and he says, go back down. Anybody want to take another 1,000-step walkings? Even the Kohanim who are allowed to approach Adonai must keep themselves holy, otherwise Adonai will break out against them. Moses said to Adonai, the people can't come up to Mount Sinai because you ordered them to set limits around the mountains and separate it. But Adonai answered them, go get down, then come back up, you and Aaron with you. But don't let the Kohanim and the people force their way through to come up to Adonai, or he will break out against them. So Moshe went up and told to the people and told them. Strange.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden you get used to the fact that the shofar's gone, the voice says you heard it, and then can you see him? Can you see him? No, all I see is this cloud. Maybe if we get closer we'll see his face. How many of you have seen like flood or sitting on the beach and the lagoon breaks open and all the rest of it? You see all the people like really, the closer they get to see what's happening, they're like, and then you have people get a little bit back, get a little bit back, get a little bit back. Because we want to see right up into the edge of the cliff. We want to look all the way down in the big hole. We want to see everything that we can see. And all of a sudden, we're not scared anymore. Now we're looking up and we're going, oh, this is cool. What's going on here? You need to understand that God, as much as He comes down, will only reveal Himself as much as what you possibly can handle. Even Moses, I want to see your face. He's like, one day you're going to see it, but you're not going to be alive. If I show you now, that's it. But I've got work for you. So I'm not going to do it. You can look at my back. Which is, again, rather odd when you think about it, since God is spirit. He always gives you these pictures. He says, I will show you some of my glory. And then, what did Moses look like?
Shining.
He was very shiny, very sparkly. Freaked people out, I'm sure. Moshe! Moshe!
He's the solution to ISKCON.
Yeah, it's like nuclear power plant sort of thing.
Yeah, Chernobyl.
But remember, everything is a foreshadow, right? So if someone goes up to the mountain and they come up completely transformed, what's he trying to show you?
Transfiguration.
One day you're going to see Yeshua in that same light. He's going to come up and they're going to hear a voice from heaven. And what did we do at the base of the mountain? We built the tabernacle. So what did the disciples do? Let's build a tabernacle. And he goes, no, no, no. That was a point. Now things are going to start to kick up so that you can understand the fullness of why we came. While we're there, who was Yeshua talking to in the Mount of Transfiguration? Moses and Elijah. Again, all three had big moments with God on mountaintops.
It's why the thank you.
All night study.
Really?
There's lots of mountaintops in scriptures. I said to the guys next week Saturday evening in Shavuot, we've got a venue in Boxburg. We're going to go through, we're going to have a good time, and then for those who are brave, we're going to come back here and we're going to carry on unpacking this. And I'm going to focus on two aspects: mountaintops and wheat harvest. Both pictures of Shavuot. And we're going to pick mountaintops and we're going to show you that there's a general theme that runs through them, or at least you're going to understand something different about Shavuot. We don't always have the time to play these games. We will that night. You bring your blankets, you bring your snacks, you bring things to keep your eyeballs open. Last year we went till about 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and we say all night this night. And then I will send you off and you can be free.
Plastic.
Yeah, plastic sticks or whatever. Coffee will be flowing. You're welcome to come in your onesie. We won't judge. But it'll be about, remember the tradition is really if God gave, and this is something quite beautiful, a free people that have been redeemed, the gift of Torah. Torah is a gift. They spend time studying at this time as they remember the gift. Okay? So make your preparations. Tell them you're going to be home very, very late if you want to. But this whole process, this whole setup, this whole meet, this time of the Omer. Now give me the framework. Look in your notes. What do you see? Look in your notes. What do you see? You've been studying this thing for weeks. What is it about the Omer that God is trying to get you to understand?
The heart.
It's about ceremony.
It's about things preparing for what is going to happen. It's about your heart condition. It's about letting go of your past. It's about the battles you're going to face. It's about understanding that He's the bread from heaven, your daily bread. It's about understanding that He's going to give you part of Himself. He's going to descend to your level, and that you're the bride that's going to be completely covered. Would you say yes or no? Ladies, do you spend a lot of time worrying about your parents and getting ready for the day you walk down that aisle? I think most of the planning goes for, we need to see nails, we need to do makeup tests, we need to do hair, we need to go pick dresses, we need to understand color schemes, we need to understand flowers that are going to go with it, and all the rest of it. And then the groom goes, what do you want me to do? Stand there and win this. Why am I wearing pink? Shut up, it's going with the color scheme. Like, okay. And you're standing over there, and then Tico has been decided, guest lists are added, invitations are sent out. If you're one of those husbands that get involved in everything, you chose menu plans, you chose venues, you were part of the whole process. And all of that planning. And how long normally does it take to plan a wedding? In many cases, people take a year. So, that's Omer training. You know, what you told your wife was, you're going to be there, and this is what you're going to wear. And this other way around. She knew your heart.
I'm flying back home. Make sure we're not allowed to get there.
You better be there.
2 weeks.
So you get there, if you really start to push it, you do it in a couple of months, but generally it takes a year. Isn't it interesting that in the time of preparation for the brides to get ready, it was anything from 6 months to a year? Waiting for them to come while he was preparing the place. This is a time of preparation. Everything that you've been going through, guys, and I'm not trying to make light of it. Some of us have been given some real fair exciting ups and downs over this last time of the Omer. Things are falling apart. Things go left, things go right. He checks your daily bread. He wants to see if you understand it. Are you focused on me as the source? When the enemy comes and he starts trying to pick you off at the back of the camp, and he's starting to pull here and hit here and do this and bring isolation, how are you going to handle it? Are you going to pull together as a community? Are you going to intercede for each other? Are you going to stand up? Are you going to say, fix us, get us ready for the time you appear? And do you believe that at the time when He says, get ready, God is coming? Are you getting ready? This is not a feast when we choose it. This is His feast at His time for His glory. And He wants you to sit at His table. I'm hoping for us as a fellowship, this is going to be something that's going to bring massive, massive, massive breakthrough. And some of the things as we've been praying and asking God to look at, uproot, fix, get rid of all the past hurts, start putting us back together. We have heard of many, and I'm trusting for many, many, many more, where people have said, listen, something changed. For me, something happened that night when everybody stood and prayed. And I'm hoping that God is building us up to recognize that it's okay to cry out. It's okay to get this body working together a little bit more. It's okay for us to get involved a little bit more with each other's stuff. It's okay for us to let go of all the hurts and say, look, that part of us has to die, it's gone. I'm no longer looking back. I want to look forward. And I might not understand the fullness of what's coming, but I know He does, and I trust Him, and I know everything He does is going to blow my mind because He loves me that much. Can you imagine the groom being the one to plan the entire wedding? And he's just going to send some people to come and fetch you. And he's going to be like, I'm going to give you a clue when I come. I'm going to blow the shofar. And then the people are going to come up and they're going to lift you up in a cart and you're going to take back to my prepared place. Everything is going to be set up for you. You just have to be there. This is what Yeshua is doing. This is what He's done. He said, I've carried you on wings of eagles and I've brought you unto myself. I want to reveal myself to you. Are you ready? No one should. Remember, it's going to be a double Shabbat this week, but I want to do something a little bit different than just normal Vince talking, because you get a lot of that and you're going to get a lot of it afterwards. But there's something in Jewish tradition called Simchat Torah. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, dancing with the Torah.
Right? On the 8th, well, it's really the 9th day after Sukkot. They get a Torah scroll, okay, and if you're kosher, you take the Torah scroll, they carry it on their chest, but there's ones, and they're like this big. So only it starts with the young burly boykies, and then if you're privileged enough, you get to walk, and some of them just walk around the synagogue and do laps. A lot of them dance. You know, like you dance when you're carrying your son and you want to put him to sleep, or you listen to a song and he's there. If this is the time where He gave us Torah, and He gave us the Holy Spirit, who wrote the Torah, surely we can dance a little. I want to ask band to do something, and I want us to rejoice. I want us to just rejoice in Him. I want us to have a feast, a celebration, a time where you realize that as you put on, okay, the Torah scroll that I've got is about a year big, so don't worry about busting any biceps or anything. But to put that across your heart, and understand that you're taking Yeshua rolled up and you're putting Him here. And you get to just be free. You get to just enjoy. You get to just understand that this is me and Him, and it's about this time and what's coming. He's been preparing you. He's been putting you through stuff. He's been testing your heart. Hopefully, He's showing you some stuff about yourself that you didn't think you had. I know at this time He's done some things for me. And He's like, yeah, you dealt with the stuff at the top, but we need to get a little bit deeper, and we're going to take out those roots this time. And I want to get rid of that, so that is no longer a problem for you, my boy, because if we don't get rid of it, this is going to choke out the seed that I'm going to put in its place. Time to let go of everything you were and embrace everything you are and everything that God is making you. You think you can do that?
Yes.
Take the time. You've got the week. And please do some introspection. Sit down at your Father's feet and saying, if there's anything that you need to get rid of it. It's you washing your clothes. It's you standing up, getting rid of it. Do you have any more advice for me? Is there anything else that I'm doing wrong that I don't even see that I'm doing wrong? This is the time. He ascended, He went up through intercession. He was preparing the way for you to follow. He went to go prepare the place. Let us at least acknowledge the fact that we have this gift, and that gift was the Ruach HaKodesh and the Word, and the two going together. They've only got one place in our lives. It needs to be written on your heart. It needs to be filling every part of your being. It needs to make you whole. It needs to make you understand you're loved. It needs to make you understand that your past is gone, but your future is with Him. And at this time, He asks you, are you mine? Israel, you have to answer, as you did with Pesach. If I drink of this cup, what am I saying? If I eat of this flesh, what am I saying? And will I rejoice at the fact that God has chosen me, has chosen this community, has chosen this people to belong to Him? So pray. If you want to fast, you fast. If you want to prepare in any way, shape or form, prepare. But please don't make it an outward thing of just pitching up and saying, oh, don't worry, we prepared supper. If your heart's not right, we're going to have problems. This is not something you attend. It's something you're present in. You don't attend your own wedding. You're the reason everybody else comes. As you are being prepared as the bride.